It's 8 p.m. You know what that means. It's I Love Cinema. We're on episode 18 already. Oh, it's fantastic. Welcome, welcome. Let me dive right in because I have a lot to talk about today. I have three films that I want to review. Like, if you can call it review, what I do. I'm just sharing my thoughts on them. And let's delve, dive right into the news section. All right. You've probably, like, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there's been some outcry over James Gunn, who has been fired from the third Guardians of the Galaxy film. He's been fired by Disney, who's the studio behind the films. Obviously, they've acquired Marvel and yada yada. You know, Disney's taken over the world, right? So James Gunn has been fired from Guardians of the Galaxy by Disney because some of his old tweets from like 2009 to 2012, something like that, they were brought back up by some bloggers who seriously have a problem with him, I guess. Disney seen them. These tweets were quite offensive. And they, because of that, fired James Gunn. It, these tweets, I've only read like a few of them. Like there's quite a few of them. He was basically being very offensive about homosexual couples or homosexuality in general, about rape and just like all kinds of things. It was really insensitive, the shit that he was tweeting about. But it's also been almost 10 years since he tweeted that. All right. But because of these tweets, Disney was like, we can't work with this guy because I guess we're a family company with a mouse, right? So we can't have that kind of behavior. And subsequently, yeah, they got rid of him. Now, I can kind of understand their stance on this. Don't hate me, James Gunn's fans, because I'm also a James Gunn fan. Um, I even like his earlier stuff. I never really knew about his tweets. I didn't really follow him before Guardians of the Galaxy came out. And clearly, this guy in the last 10 years has changed considerably. He's quite outspoken now when it comes to equality. He's not this offensive and headline seeking, attention seeking person anymore. He's clearly grown up. He has evolved, thank God, in the last 10 years. And yet Disney chose to get rid of him. And I have a huge problem with that because one of the things, and the main thing for me, is the message we're sending, especially to men who, let's say, used to think the way that Gunn used to think, and who was just trying to get a rise out of people, was saying very offensive stuff just to get a rise out of people, or even people who are really homophobic and racist and all of that stuff. But we're basically telling them that even if you change, we're still gonna hold you accountable for what you said 10 years ago, and we're gonna fuck up your life because of what you said 10 years ago, even though in those 10 years you've clearly changed about what you think about these things now. So we're not giving people the chance to evolve. He doesn't share these views anymore, and he's also apologized. But I mean, everyone can just like quickly throw together an apology. They all have PR people for that kind of thing. It's like, so I don't really give a shit about the apology because anyone can write that, right? But what I find more important is how he has been behaving himself, how he has acted online and in person, and also by the films that he's been producing and directing and making in the last 10 years. And clearly he has evolved from that silly stuff that he used to say. So I feel we're definitely making the wrong precedent here, that even though you've changed, we're still gonna fuck you over because 10 years ago you said something racist or homophobic or otherwise offensive. And I do not agree with that. So I have quite a problem with that. Obviously, some of his friends, like Rook has stepped in, and he's actually left Twitter. He was like, "Fuck Twitter," they're the cause of all of this, which is a bit weird, but fine. He's definitely behind Gunn. Same with Dave Bautista and like a lot of others as well. And I have to admit, it's like usually I don't stand for that kind of shitty behavior, like being homophobic, being racist, or being offensive in any other way, shape, or form. Even though I'm also quite an offensive person, every now and then. But I get it, why he obviously got into trouble for it. But I also think that you need to always take into account how that person has lived their life since that incident. You know, that, like I said, that was almost 10 years ago. And also, Disney, you're not being very consistent because you work with people who are not behaving as the mouse would behave. You know, let's say, for example, Johnny Depp. He's an abuser. He's abused Amber Heard and probably others. You worked with him after that abuse allegation and court and everything. Like, we've all seen it, right? He gave money to Amber Heard. She gave it to a charity or whatever it was, I think for abuse victims. We all know that. It was in the press, and yet Disney still chose to work with him. Same with Warner Brothers. They still choose to work with him. He's in the new Fantastic Beasts, the second one, whatever it's called. He's in that trailer. They choose to work with him even though he is an abuser. And the other one is like, there's an actual abuser. And here's James Gunn, who is being fired because he wrote some tweets. He was verbally abusive. And he gets into a lot more shit than someone who is physically abusive. It just doesn't add up, does it? All because of some old tweets. While also, like, that part of the news, HBO, for example, is going ahead with a new show for Joss Whedon. His wife raised allegations against him of domestic abuse. Now, whether that has been confirmed or not, but, you know, that shit is happening, and some people are being called in for that, are losing work for that, their livelihood or whatever. There are repercussions for their behavior just because of allegations, and yet other people seem to have a get out of jail free card, like Whedon, or let's say like James Franco. He got a second season for his TV series Deuce, despite allegations, and those allegations actually cost him a deserved Oscar nomination for The Disaster Artist. But the Academy was not nominating him because of these allegations, and yet HBO gives him a second season. Now, obviously, it's hard to, you know, cancel a movie or cancel a show just because one person fucks up, because the livelihoods of hundreds of people are attached to that. I mean, just look at House of Cards, right? Kevin Spacey immediately lost his lead role on House of Cards, but then got Robin Wright and a lot of other people were rallying to, we can still make this happen even without him. He's just one person, right? But what really irks me, Disney, is that if you stand for what you're doing with James Gunn, then you also need to terminate your working relationship with a lot of other people who are still working with you. People that have done a lot worse than James Gunn. So you need to sort your Mickey Mouse house out, seriously. You need to be consistent. You're either consistently standing for these values, or you just, you know, fuck it, as long as this person makes us money. And trust me, James Gunn actually makes you a lot of money because he's a very talented filmmaker. I really hate what they're doing right now. And there's also, if you're a James Gunn fan, or if you think that Disney is totally in the wrong here, whatever it is, there's a petition by fans, and I think by a bunch of other people, who are trying to get James Gunn rehired. Whether that has any kind of, like, success, I have no idea. But this whole James Gunn thing, so at first I was like, whoa, what did he do? And then I read up on it, and I was like, it's just about a bunch of tweets. You sometimes tweet stupid shit. And, I mean, obviously he could have deleted these tweets, but he chose not to because that was him 10 years ago. And he has obviously had a journey, and I quite like that. Because we all have a journey. We sometimes say stupid, potentially offensive and shitty things. But he is actually manning up to that. It's like, yes, I said that. I was an entirely different person back then. I was an asshole. I was, I don't know, uneducated. I just didn't know any better. But at least all he did was fucking tweet about it. He didn't actually physically punch someone or sexually abuse someone or anything that is actually really, really fucking bad. He sent a bunch of tweets. I really don't get it, Disney. It sounds like you just wanted to get rid of him. Or that someone just went, oh my god, we have to do something, panic reaction. And you push the red button, and then you're like, we can't unpush the button, so what are we gonna do? Fucked up situation. Seriously, fucking weird. And also, speaking of abusers, speaking of Joss Whedon, getting a new show on HBO. That sounds very interesting, but still doesn't negate the fact that his wife is alleging that he is a domestic abuser. He's also getting a Buffy the Vampire reboot that is happening, and apparently it's going to have a black lead. Now, he's not going to be the showrunner of this new show. He's going to function as the executive producer, but he's obviously still very involved with that project. A lady named Monica Obuse-Brain from Lost, Alias, and Fringe. Two of these shows I really liked. She will be the showrunner, the writer, the executive producer. They are basically revamping Buffy the Vampire Slayer. According to Deadline, the new version of the show will feature a black female lead and is in development at Fox TV Studios. And the show will be pitched around networks this summer, and it's said to be contemporary, building on the mythology of the original. So whether they're just gonna revamping it with a black lead and just retelling the same story, which would be rubbish, or if they just go like, here's another Slayer, because spoilers if you've never seen Buffy, which is like, what, 20 years old now? Feels like 20 years, maybe it's less. At the end, there were like several Slayers. There were different Slayers. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? There were a lot of different Slayers. She could just be one of the Slayers, and we're telling her story. Would work. If they're just revamping it and just making the Sarah Michelle Gellar character a black lady, why? It's an easy option not to, so we'll see how that goes. But that's enough about fucking abusers and Buffy and Whedon and Johnny Depp and James Gunn. Dude, I hope this gets sorted, mate. On to happier news. You know, I have a list of actors and actresses that are enough for me to actually go and see a movie, right? Jennifer Connelly is on that list. She's a fantastic actress ever since I've seen her in Requiem for a Dream, which is one hell of a fucked up movie. If you've never seen that, it's a Darren Aronofsky film. I'm not sure if that was his first one, but either way, just go and find it and you can thank me later. She feels the need for speed. And she's not in a Need for Speed movie. That is a bit, like, I want to say a quote from Top Gun, but not really. But it's a thing to do with Top Gun, right? I feel the need for speed. I'm not doing it justice. She is in talks right now to be in Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to Top Gun that Tom Cruise, I think he started shooting, I think a few weeks ago. She's in early talks to join Tom Cruise and Miles Teller as the female lead. So that should be very interesting. I always love seeing Jennifer Connelly, and as a female lead, even better. I hope she's not necessarily going to be the love interest, but we'll see how that pans out. And now on to more of my favorite people, David Leitch, who famously is the director of Deadpool 2 and Atomic Blonde, two movies that I'm a huge fan of. And I love all his action sequences and stuff. Like, he's one of the directors that I'm definitely on the lookout for. He is now in talks to direct the Enter the Dragon remake. Now, if you're unaware of this, the Bruce Lee classic Enter the Dragon from, was it in the 60s or something? 60s, 70s? I can't even remember. I grew up with this film when I was a little kid. A really amazing movie. If you've never seen it, if you've never seen a Bruce Lee film, you need to check out Enter the Dragon. It's really, really good. For years, they were trying to make a remake. Spike Lee was trying to make a remake. That would have potentially been interesting. Brett Ratner, no thank you. So they both tried to get a remake off the ground at various points in I think the last decade or so. Now Leitch is trying to do that, and I'm really excited because Leitch is absolutely fantastic when it comes to action. If you've seen Atomic Blonde, if you've seen Deadpool 2, you know exactly what I mean. This guy has a thing for visuals, for action. He's absolutely amazing. I mean, he used to be a stuntman, right, or a stunt coordinator. He really knows how to do these things. And doing like a kung fu film, I mean, seriously, where do I buy tickets, mate? It's going to be amazing. And speaking of sort of superhero films, I mean, Bruce Lee, he was as much a superhero as you can be, I guess. Robert De Niro might actually sign on to be in a superhero film. How weird is that, right? Of all the superhero films, he might join the Joker movie that is going to star Joaquin Phoenix. Now, according to the Hollywood Reporter, De Niro would, if he signs on, would play a talk show host who is somehow instrumental in the Joker's origin. So that sounds really interesting. The Joker, if you've not heard, is a one-off movie that does not take place in the continuity of the DC universe at all, like films like the Justice League or Wonder Woman or Batman versus Superman. It's like it's outside the continuity. It's just like a one-off, like a one-shot. It has nothing to do with all the others. It doesn't have to be consistent with anything you've known before. It can basically do, it has carte blanche. It can just do whatever it wants to do. They want it to be a bit darker. It's going to be having a smaller budget. It's going to be more of a character piece than anything else. And apparently Martin Scorsese is actually serving as executive producer on the film. Maybe that's where the connection comes from with Robert De Niro as well. So that should be interesting. And in other news for Joker, Frances Conroy, if you don't know who that is, you've probably seen her on 50 million different shows and projects. She will be playing Joker's mum. I think that's great casting. I love seeing her. She's a very captivating, amazing actress. I really, every time she's in something, I'm like, there she is again, there she is again, there she is again. She's fantastic. I think she was in American Horror Story, and she was I think she was in 6 Feet Under. She's just in everything. You know, she's amazing. Joker, what I've told before, begins filming this fall in New York City and arrives in theaters October 2019. And more into like the comic booky and superhero-y stuff, Man in Black is getting a spin-off. In case you've not watched any of my previous shows, you might not know that, but yes, they are getting a spin-off. And now we have a new cast member to add to the list, and this time around it's Emma Thompson. And she's been in Man in Black 3, which I think I didn't even bother watching because I already didn't like Man in Black 2. But she is basically bringing back her character from Man in Black 3. She will once again play Agent Zero, the chief of the secret Man in Black organization. So in Man in Black 3, her character took over the role from Zed, who was played by Rip Torn in Man in Black 1 and 2. And he died in the third entry, right? And there was this whole thing about like his eulogy and stuff, and Emma Thompson had a really funny scene. And it was just really bizarre and weird, and I was like, what the heck are they getting Emma Thompson to do? It's just so bizarre. But as an actor, you need to be ready to be a clown, right? Also in the film that I've previously reported, me and my other personalities, because I always say we've reported as if I'm like the Hollywood Reporter or something. Tessa Thompson, no relation to Emma Thompson, is headlining along with Chris Hemsworth. They've been together obviously in Thor Ragnarok. And Liam Neeson and Kumail Nanjiani are going to be in it as well. It's scheduled for summer 2019 release, and I'm definitely excited to see this one. Okay, so speeding it up. I want to just quickly mention 2 trailers. We have had the Glass trailer hit. If you don't know what that is, it's a new M. Night Shyamalan film that's coming out next year. It's next year. I think it's next year. Yes, it's actually coming out in January 2019. And it's a follow-up to Unbreakable and Split. So Shyamalan did a movie about 20 years ago called Unbreakable, which was about a superhero, so to speak, played by Bruce Willis, and Mr. Glass was played by Samuel L. Jackson. And then the movie wasn't very well received, which is quite surprising because it was really well done. It was quite interesting and very different from anything that you'd seen previously. But it was just too early. The superhero hype hadn't started yet. And it's like sometimes projects come too early and people are just not ready for it. And that's kind of what it feels like for Unbreakable. And then I think like 2 years ago, Split came out, which is starring James McAvoy. And at the end of that film, like seriously, if you've not seen Split, not that it's going to be a ginormous spoiler, but it's kind of a bit fun at the end, where they make a connection from Split to Unbreakable because Bruce Willis's character is showing up in the bar at the very end of Split as his character because his shirt says Dunn, which was his character's name. So it's a clear connection between these two films. And the last few months, or maybe even the last year, I can't remember, Shyamalan was doing quite a lot of press and saying, it's like, yeah, when I wrote Unbreakable, I envisioned a trilogy, but then Unbreakable wasn't very well received, so I was like, scratch that, let's not worry about that. And obviously Split was very well received because it's a fantastic film and James McAvoy did a really good job. It also stars Anna Taylor-Joy, which she's fantastic. I love seeing her as well. So in Glass, the new trailer has hit. I haven't watched it yet because I don't want to be spoiled for a film that I will be watching for sure. So you can check it out on YouTube. I hear it's really good. And Glass, like I said, comes out in January 2019. In case you want to know the synopsis, M. Night Shyamalan brings together the narrative of two of his standout originals, the 2000 Unbreakable and the 2016 Split, in one explosive all-new comic book thriller, Glass. Now, from Unbreakable, we have Bruce Willis return as David Dunn and Samuel L. Jackson as Elijah Price, known also by his pseudonym Mr. Glass. So Samuel L. Jackson was Mr. Glass, right? So joining from Split is James McAvoy, reprising his role as Kevin Wendell Crumb, and with all his multiple identities that he had in Split, and Anya Taylor-Joy as Casey Cook, the only captive to survive an encounter with the Beast, which was the supernatural, mega buff, mega powerful 25th or 24th personality that James McAvoy had in Split. It was an absolute amazing ending. It blew my mind. And following the conclusion of Split, Glass finds Dunn pursuing Crumb's superhuman figure of the Beast in a series of escalating encounters, while the shadowy presence of Price emerges as an orchestrator who holds secret critical to both men. Also, interesting news for me, because I'm a fan, Sarah Paulson is playing their psychiatrist, because all three of them end up in the same mental institution. Which is from the poster that I've shown a few weeks ago, where you see all of them sitting, I think, in wheelchairs or something, or just sitting down, and you see on the pristine floor their real character reflection, like their superhero alter ego, so to speak. So yeah, Sarah Paulson gets me to the cinema. Jennifer Connelly gets me to the cinema. You know, it's great. Other trailer, I'm quickly gonna let you know, Aquaman is out. I don't know anything about Aquaman other than Jason Momoa is in it. I love Jason Momoa because he's a really charming, amazing dude. Obviously, he works out a lot and he looks fucking fantastic. It looks like a stupid superhero movie that might be a lot of fun. I didn't quite understand it because I don't know the character very well. I thought, okay, he's Aquaman. He's from Atlantis. He's from, down below. He's from the sea. But there's a section in the trailer where him and Amber Heard, who's in there as well, who plays another Atlantean, they're jumping out of an airplane over ground, like over land, not into the sea. They're jumping out of an airplane without parachutes, and they're doing it as if it's like, woohoo, it's nothing. I was like, I don't know whether they're a Superman and can fly because they're from Atlantis underwater. I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know the comics. I have no bloody clue what's going on. It looks like a lot of popcorny, stupid, silly fun. So I will watch it. Plus, I like Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. So these trailers are out. There's a lot of other trailers out. There's lots of great stuff coming out. Now I'm going to talk to you about Mission Impossible Fallout. And just because, that makes everything really dark. This might be better. Okay. I usually prefer the banners, but because the banner is quite bright, it makes everything else really dark. Mission Impossible Fallout, the new Mission Impossible film that has just been released in cinemas here in the UK. Let me give you a quick synopsis. This is episode 6, so to speak, film number 6. We have Ethan Hunt, obviously played by Tom Cruise, and the IMF team join forces with CIA assassin August Walker, I can't talk too much, to prevent a disaster of epic proportions. Arms dealer John Lark and a group of terrorists known as the Apostles, silent L, right? As the Apostles? Yeah. Plan to use 3 plutonium cores for a simultaneous nuclear attack on the Vatican, Jerusalem, and Mecca in Saudi Arabia. When the weapons go missing, Ethan and his crew find themselves in a desperate race against time to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. The film is written, produced, and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who also did the previous one, Rogue Nation, which I think is my favorite Mission Impossible film. This is, like I said, the 6th installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. So McQuarrie is actually the first director of the series to ever come back to helm another film in the series. And the cast obviously includes Tom Cruise. Ving Rhames is back as Luther, and Simon Pegg, and Rebecca Ferguson is back, Sean Harris, Michelle Monaghan, and Alec Baldwin. They all reprise roles from the previous films, while Henry Cavill, Angela Bassett, and Vanessa Kirby joined the franchise. Now, Vanessa Kirby has a really interesting role in this film. She shows up in basically a scene-stealing role in the film. It's not a spoiler. By the way, everything here is going to be spoiler-free. I'm not going to be spoiling anything. Just like all the times, like if there's a spoiler, I will let you know, but I don't plan on spoiling anything. She plays an absolute scene stealer in The White Widow, I think she's called. The entire film, I was like, I know this woman. I just don't know why I know this woman, but there's just like, I have no idea. And at the very end, when the credits rolled and I saw her name, Vanessa Kirby, scrolling past, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. In case you didn't know who Vanessa Kirby is, she played Princess Anne in The Crown, together with Claire Foy. They were playing sisters in that, and she's played that role in seasons 1 and seasons 2. Now, obviously, she has a lot of time on her hands because season 3 is, I think, going to be a time jump, and older versions of the characters are going to show up in the show. It's great to see her in that. She did an amazingly wicked job. She easily, I think, stole the entire film. I had a lot of fun with her character. She was very, very interesting. Now that you know the synopsis, which is obviously not a spoiler, I love the Mission Impossible franchise. And I love all the crazy ass action. It's kind of like Fast and the Furious, but with spies. You know, it's like every installment goes bigger and crazier, and just what is Tom Cruise up to? And because of that, you see all the news about that. Like Tom Cruise obviously did this helicopter stunt. It was all over the news. Tom Cruise broke his foot when he was jumping from roof to roof because it was all over the news. He jumped out of an airplane and did a halo jump. It was all over the news, right? So even when you're not watching the trailer, which is what I'm trying to do, is like not watch the trailer because I know I'm going to watch the movie anyway. So I don't want to be spoiled. And yet the news managed to spoil it for me. So overall, I have to admit, it's like I enjoyed the film. I thought it was really good from start to finish. However, I was a tiny bit disappointed because the previous installments, ever since number 3, every time a new one came out, it was bigger, better, crazier, more amazing, epic. Loved it. It wowed me with sets or locations or crazy ass stunts or whatever it was. This one didn't manage to do that. Like, there's crazy action in this. There's great action in this. The sequences are fantastic. But they didn't wow me. And I think it is because I knew about them. Like, I almost had a checklist in my head where I was like, okay, now we're doing a halo jump. All right, cool. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. Now this is coming up. Oh, now he's going to go break his foot. Oh, there it is. And everyone went like, oh my God, you see, that's where he broke his foot. We knew too much about the movie. We knew too much about the production. And for me, I think that kind of destroyed a bit of the fun and a bit of the surprise that, like, I mean, I will never forget when he was in Dubai outside that skyscraper with his like weird ass suction cups, and then he almost fell all the way, and I was like, I mean, you know, I have a height problem anyway, so I was experiencing vertigo the entire time, but I was just like so in awe when he did that, or the stuff when he was strapped onto the airplane, and I was like, he's mental, he's just so fucking mental. But it was great, it was wowing me, and this time that didn't happen, and because of that, I felt a bit disappointed because I expected to be wowed a lot more. That said, this is a really, really good movie. It has a lot of action. It has a lot of brutal action. It has a lot of insane stunts. The story is very by the numbers. But I think story-wise, it was never really much of a like a trendsetter or something. You always know that there's going to be some cat and mouse play and everyone is scheming and stuff. And sooner or later you find out that one person who thought they were in control are no longer in control because someone else has been plotting all around them. And then there's this big reveal for the audience of what has actually been going on. And you're like, oh yeah, there we go. Because that happens every single time, right? The film seems to be rehashing a lot of what we have seen previously. This is probably, it's just not easy to keep going a franchise like this. Like, it's the 6th iteration already. Coming up with new stuff that will wow people is probably not as easy as we think. So, I have to admit, I watch Mission Impossible for the action. and the action was great, even though most of the time it didn't surprise me. But that skydive, that halo jump that they do out of the cargo plane at what, 25,000 feet or something. So you need like an oxygen mask and an oxygen tank, because otherwise your lungs would just go and that is fantastic. And I watched it in 3D as well. I think you don't actually have to go and see Mission Impossible Fallout in 3D. It doesn't really add anything. And some of the action's quite frantic, so I think watching it in 3D might be a bit detrimental, potentially. There's absolutely no need to watch it in 3D. Go and watch it in 2D and properly enjoy it. I'm probably going to watch it again, and when I watch it again, I will watch it in 2D for sure. But that halo jump, that is the one bit in the entire film where I was like, now I feel the 3D is not necessarily worth it, but I do feel it was fun. You know, jumping out of that plane and seeing how they must have filmed it. Like the camera person obviously jumped with him. It just blows my mind what they did. And then there's some good stuff happening there with the halo jump as well. And there's quite a lot of laugh out loud funny moments as well. Or maybe not laugh out loud, but there's definitely a chuckle here and a chuckle there, just because of stuff that happens. And I really like that. It's all like in small details, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because they might be spoilers. And I want you to be surprised by things, so I'm not going to tell you about this. Other great action sequences, which have been unfortunately spoiled by the news. There's a great bike chase scene through Paris, and Tom Cruise is riding a motorcycle, not wearing a helmet, and he goes against traffic in the ginormous circle around the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And if you've ever seen footage from Paris, you know how crazy the traffic is there. He was riding that without a helmet. And it was a great sequence. You obviously have Rebecca Ferguson's Elsa coming back, and she gets her motorcycle again, and there's like great chases with that as well. I've really, really loved that. That was fantastic. In general, just like all like the car chases, the bike chases, that's always really well done. It's quite energetic and kinetic, and it's just always a lot of fun. And there's also, it's a Mission Impossible film. Tom Cruise is in it, so of course there's going to be a foot chase, because Tom Cruise loves nothing more than to run as fast as he can. Like, I really want to see Tom Cruise versus Gal Gadot, because if you've seen the footage from Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot is just like bolting down the street, like footage of Wonder Woman 1984. She's just bolting down the street, and I was just watching it. I was watching it a few times, and I was like, how can this woman run this fast? Like, this is footage from a smartphone, because someone was filming it out of, like, I don't know, the 5th floor or something. And she was literally, the camera was going, she was running. I was like, how can a human being run this fast? And then when I was watching Mission Impossible, I was like, right, Tom Cruise runs this fast. I kind of want to see them run and see who's faster, because they both are fucking insane when it comes to their running speed. So you have that in Mission Impossible, which is also quite a lot of fun, because Tom Cruise is like, just the way that he runs, and it's just insane. It's like he's trying to make himself even more aerodynamic. It's just, I love seeing him run. It's like one of the running gags for me. It's like every single Mission Impossible, you need to see Tom Cruise run at top speed. Then there's obviously also a great fist fight, like a great, yeah, kind of like a showdown, smackdown between him and the big bad at the very end, which is also quite good. One of the things I really loved about the film, which is at the very start, there is a fight sequence in a bathroom, and it's really fucking brutal and really realistic as well. So Tom Cruise obviously has to partner up with Henry Cavill's character, who's the CIA dude, right? And they're trying to get this Lark guy, because he's going to meet with the White Widow, who's played by Vanessa Kirby, and she's fucking brilliant. But because they need to take out this guy, this Lark guy, and meet with the White Widow, they meet this tiny Asian dude in the loo, right? And Tom Cruise's idea is like, I'm going to inject him with something, and then I'm going to like print a mask because I'm from Mission Impossible, and then I'm going to be him and it's going to be fine. Whereas Henry Cavill, he's like, I'm going to smash his lights out, and then we're just going to do this. So obviously they don't have the same approach. And because of that, it ends up being this it feels like a 10-minute fight scene. It's probably not even half that long, but it's absolutely amazing. There are funny bits in there as well, because obviously you're in a public bathroom. People do come in and you're trying not to make a scene. And it's one of the absolute action highlights in this film. And one of the things I loved about it was that you have Superman Henry Cavill and you've got Tom Cruise, who's pretty much a Superman as well, right? And they're battling this little Asian guy. And they're getting their asses handed to them. Really badly. And I was like, Tom Cruise is the star of this movie. And he doesn't have a problem getting his ass kicked. Because he's trying to show how amazing this other dude is. How hard it is to get a hold of this other dude. And I absolutely loved it. Because he's not always this invincible Superman. He is someone who, he might die any second. Someone might best him. There's always someone who will best you. And the scene leads to an introduction of another character, which is fantastic. And the film has a lot of really cool bits, which is why I was really surprised when I was telling my mates about it. I was like, overall, the film left me wanting. The film left me disappointed a bit, left me feeling a bit meh. But when you actually look at the individual parts of it, they're all great. Well, not all of them, but most of them are really, really great. But for whatever reason, they just don't gel really well together into a great one movie, which is really, really a shame. Obviously, we had the foot chase, we have the helicopter sequence. If you don't know what that is, don't Google it. Watch the movie first and then Google it after. Tom Cruise learned how to fly a helicopter and do a crazy ass stunt with it that even a seasoned helicopter pilot wouldn't do. And it looks absolutely fantastic. I love that helicopter sequence. It's really, really amazing. He runs across the rooftops of London, which is another great sequence, quite comedic sequence, because he's got Simon Pegg's Benji in his ear, and there's like some funny shit with the dialogue and stuff. You've seen it probably in the trailer. It's really, really well done. But for whatever reason, it's not as much fun as the last one was. Especially the last one was really a well done film. And one of the things that I found annoying and distracting in this version, really early on, they introduce a sort of like not a flashback, but it's like Tom Cruise's character gets like memory flashes, and he thinks of his wife, Michelle Monaghan, who's kind of like his weak spot. And these flashes come up several times throughout the film, and they're obviously signifying something that I'm not going to tell you about. But I felt like they were entirely unnecessary. They didn't really add anything to his character or his characterization or the narrative. You could have easily cut them out, and Ethan and the story would have been exactly the same. So I found them really annoying, and I was like, why are you doing this? It's not needed. And considering that McQuarrie did the previous installment, which is one of my absolute favorite Mission Impossible films, if not the favorite Mission Impossible film for me, I can't believe what he did here. It's like, why would you put that stuff in there? It makes no sense to me. The other highlight, of course, which is why Rogue Nation, the previous one, is one of my favorites, is Rebecca Ferguson. She comes back as Ilsa. She has a great introduction again. She is at odds again, friends and foe kind of, with Tom Cruise as well, as they were in the previous one, which made their relationship quite interesting. She gets her moments to shine, which is quite fantastic, especially in the end. Like, wow, this lady, it's like, I know I said that about Sofia Boutella in Hotel Artemis. Someone needs to give Sofia Boutella an action franchise, because she's just so amazing. But Rebecca Ferguson is great. She needs her own action franchise as well. They need to do like they do with Fast and Furious. They do Hobbs and Shaw spin-off. They need to do the Mission Impossible Ilsa Faust spin-off or something. She is awesome. I love seeing her. She's so capable. She's definitely on par with Cruise, just like she was in the previous one. They didn't forget what they did there with her, and I love that. And I was already talking about Vanessa Kirby being awesome as the White Widow. There's also something in regards to her characterization that comes out later on that you can kind of pick up on in the very first scene that she's there. And it's exactly what makes her character so interesting. You can tell there's something going on behind the scenes. She's not just the broker or an arms dealer or a villain or an action lady or whatever it is. You can tell that she has layers, and that's why it works so well. So you have, like I said, you have the old friends and foes returning. You have the usual cat and mouse play interspersed with a lot of action. Overall, I thought it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. But because I'd seen too much in the news of it, all the amazing stuff that was supposed to wow me just didn't wow me because I'd already seen it on the news, which is very, very unfortunate, because otherwise I would have liked the Halo jump. I was like, wow, he actually jumped out of that. And then the helicopter thing was still really impressive. Same with like the whole running across the rooftops of London, still impressive. The chases in Paris, still impressive, but because like you had a checklist in your head going like, oh, and now that, oh, okay, yeah, now we're doing that scene, oh, now we're doing that action sequence, because everyone told you about these action sequences beforehand. So as soon as they started, you're like, oh, now we're doing this. That doesn't mean that they're any less amazing or impressive, but the wow factor is gone. It's like when you have a child and they know that you're decorating the Christmas tree. It's not that you're opening the door and the child goes, wow, the Christmas tree. Now the child is part of decorating the Christmas tree. It's still nice and it's still a pretty Christmas tree, but the wow factor is just not there anymore. That's kind of what it's like. I loved Cavill in this. I'm not usually a fan of Henry Cavill. Like, I don't hate him, I don't love him, that kind of thing. But what he did in this movie, I thought he was really well cast. I loved what he did. He didn't get much emotional stuff to do, but what he had to do in the role, I think he did really well. I loved his physicality of it as well. I immediately bought that he is the character that people were saying that he is. And I loved Angela Bassett showing up in like 2 or 3 scenes, which was kind of cool. When Alec Baldwin came back was cool. By the way, yeah, Jeremy Renner's not in this. In case you didn't, I think I talked about this last week. Renner's not in this because he was supposed to be, officially, he was supposed to be in Avengers, and then for whatever reason he wasn't in Avengers. Whatever it is. Renner's out, and no one really missed him. Sorry, but it's true. Yeah, Luther's back, Ving Rhames, he's fantastic. And obviously Simon Pegg. He is just a standout character, which is why he comes back over and over and over again, because he's awesome. So I love seeing him, and I love that Ethan didn't always just win. He wasn't just like the superhero who just won every single round that he went for. So overall, I thought it was a really great action movie. It doesn't have a lot of... I don't know, it's just not... It's just not the, what was it called? The Burj Khalifa in Dubai. You know, that is one hell of a set piece, right? That's one hell of a location. Now, the Arc de Triomphe obviously is also one hell of a location, but it's just not as impressive. It's only impressive when you think, whoa, they needed to get the entire area. They needed to stop traffic. Did they even stop traffic? Was that just random people? I don't think so, because Tom Cruise is driving there. If that was a random person, that could have killed him, especially since he's not wearing a helmet. So yeah, I don't know. So it's quite entertaining. The action set pieces are awesome. Like I said, the brutal bathroom brawl, the halo jump, the motorcycle chase in Paris, the helicopter battle. Oh, there's also, with the helicopter battle, before that starts, there's like a long line drop. There's something underneath the helicopter. And there's a crazy ass stunt that Tom Cruise does there as well. And I was like, that is awesome. Like, if I didn't know it was a movie, I would have probably had half a heart attack when something happens. Yeah, it was really, really good. But it's just not as breathtaking or memorable as some other pieces in the franchise. Like I said, Ethan climbing that Burj Khalifa thing, or, you know, clinging to the outside of a taking off plane. You know, we've had crazy ass shit before, but the helicopter thing is awesome, but that is the only thing that is visually really impressive, while the skydive is really awesome. Somehow it's just not as breathtaking and impressive as previous stuff has been. And I'm going to be moving on to another movie now. This was Mission Impossible Fallout. Perfectly fine to go and see. Quite a lot of fun, just not as good as the previous one. And to be fair, the previous one was pretty darn perfect. So obviously it had big shoes to fill. it failed in that a tiny bit, but that doesn't mean that Mission Impossible Fallout is a bad movie. Quite the opposite. It's a really good movie. It's a great action movie. There's a lot of stuff happening there. So you definitely should check it out if you're into Mission Impossible films, if you're into action films, if you like Tom Cruise, you have to go and see it. Henry Cavill does a really good job. So overall, I think you definitely, I would recommend watching it if you like action. Definitely go and see it. And now on to this little surprising gem. It's called Searching, down here. And it was the unlimited screening in Cineworld on Tuesday. And it is a very, very surprising gem. I was really surprised by how impressive this film is. Now, you probably don't know what this is about because hardly anyone does. So the synopsis is, told entirely from a computer screen, David Kim discovers that his daughter Margot is missing. As he searches through her web history and interviews people who were supposedly close with her, he begins to learn that his daughter was not as perfect as she seemed. So we have a missing person narrative, and we have the dad who's trying to find his missing daughter. That's why it's called Searching, right? It's starring John Cho, Deborah Messing, Joseph Lee, and Michelle La. So it's basically all on John Cho, who you've probably seen in the new Star Trek iterations. It's directed by Anish Chaganty, and the film is shot from the point of view of smartphones and computer screens. So seriously, using the tech that is around us on a daily basis, that we use on a daily basis. And it does so to a really impressive way. It's really, really bizarre. I think there's not a single shot in this film that is not via CCTV or someone's camera or someone's phone, someone's laptop, whatever it is. I think everything is done with like real life cameras without a film crew actually filming it, so to speak. And it was really impressive the way that they've done that. One of the other things that it only occurred to me after we'd seen the film and we were all kind of like exchanging what we thought and how impressed we were with it. And we're like, dude, this film has an Asian lead and no one talks about it. Like, it's never brought up throughout the entire film. Like, when he eventually goes to the police to report his daughter missing, and then it's on the news, it's like there's like a 16-year-old teenage girl missing, blah, blah, blah. No one goes like a 16-year-old Asian girl. It just never comes up, which is kind of weird because as an identifier, you probably would. But there's like an image of her, so it's like you can tell that she's Asian, obviously. It's just never made a big deal out of it. And because they don't make a big deal out of it, that is kind of a big deal. When was the last time you've seen a big film or a film in the cinema that had an Asian lead and just an Asian lead? John Cho is the lead in this. There's no co-lead. I mean, Deborah Messing is as close to a co-lead as you can be, but she's clearly not a lead. She's a supporting character as well. And it's just absolutely awesome. And throughout the entire film, I didn't even think about that. And that is what's really good about it and what's so forward-thinking about this film. And it's a well-crafted, like I said, well-crafted missing person narrative. It's got a really tight script. There's no fat in there. There's nothing in there that doesn't make a lot of sense, that doesn't need to be in there. The film and the script are talking about a lot of details in a lot of scenes, and every single detail that they show or that they talk about is actually really important. So while you're watching it, it's like you're watching a Miss Marple film or something. You can try and piece the story together. You can try and be the detective yourself. You can try and sort out the case because they are taking you on the journey with them. And that is what is so fantastic about it. It's a great use of tech and social media. So what it is basically you have the dad on the computer. Like, he works from home a lot. I'm not entirely sure what he does. There is a scene where he's like doing some work related stuff, but I'm not actually entirely sure what he does. But he works from home a lot. So he works on his computer a lot. So he knows his computer a lot. He knows the internet a lot. He knows how to work technology, which is obviously a good thing. And we see him typing. We see what he types. We see him making phone calls via his laptop and all of that stuff. So we're always right there with him when he does something. And that is where the film really shines. And that is why the film really works. It's like we're inside his head looking out through his eyes. But that doesn't mean that we are not giving the actors like a moment to shine and we don't see their emotions or something, because we see him through the laptop camera that he's sitting at. Like he's sitting at a laptop and we see him typing away or browsing the web or searching for stuff, and we see it from the point of view of the laptop camera, which is why we're really close up to his face. And that just makes it so powerful. Like his face fills out the entire screen and we see kind of what he's thinking, we see what he's feeling. It's really, really powerful. We're with him 100% of the way. And that's what makes this film so amazing. So he is quite tech savvy, but I also like that there are obviously things that he doesn't know. Like he's not a superhero of the interwebs. One of the school friends of the daughter goes like, oh yeah, she was on Tumblr a lot. And he's like, what's a Tumblr? He's like, he didn't know what a Tumblr is. And to be fair, until a year ago, I also didn't know what a Tumblr is. And then he types that into Google, and he doesn't type Tumblr, T-U-M-B-L, but he types T-U-M-B-L-E-R, like how you say it, right? And it's just really funny to see how he thinks and how he searches for stuff, because you see everything that he types in. So of course, once the girl seems to be missing, he's calling everyone. Turns out he doesn't know any of her friends, which I think is quite common for a lot of parents of teenagers, because teenagers keep a lot of stuff to themselves. But then everyone immediately jumps to the conclusion, shit, she doesn't have any friends. Someone probably did something horrible to her, or maybe she ran away from home. The setup of the film is also that her mother died a year or two earlier? I think 2 years earlier her mother died. So obviously the family has to go through a lot of shit. The girl has to deal with a lot. She's in high school. She just lost her mom 2 years ago. She's an only child, so her dad is trying to protect her, and obviously he's trying to be, he's overbearing and doing that because, you know, he's trying to be a good dad. So it's quite heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching and really emotional, all the stuff that you see there. So he starts ringing some people. He basically breaks into her laptop that she left behind, and we see him trying to get into her Facebook, which is password protected. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna get a new password. Oh, okay, send to email. Going into her emails, which is password protected, trying to get the new password for the emails. And, you know, going all the way. And we see all his detective work and the way he's thinking. And that is really fucking powerful. How he then manages going like, oh, and the second verification something is his wife's old email address, to which he does know the password. And that way he resets all the passwords so he can finally get onto her Facebook and see people, see her friends, get in contact with one of the friends. Turns out it looks like that she's going to be on a camping trip, and he immediately takes that information as an excuse to go, oh yeah, she's going to be fine. She's on a camping trip. Of course, I'm the overbearing parent and I just thought something horrible happened and she just forgot to tell me that she's on a camping trip, that kind of a thing. And then obviously you find out more and more. He starts jumping to conclusions, and as we do, we jump to the worst possible scenarios we can think of, because this world is shit and people are fucked up, and we think like all kinds of crap might have happened, and people are horrible. And then he finally goes and reports it to the police, which is where Deborah Messing comes in, because she plays the detective who will be assigned the case. And it was good to see her playing a detective again. I used to love her TV show where she played Detective Diamond, which was kind of cool. So she's a great detective, and she's also quite emotional when it comes to the case, because it's like she's a mother, it's a missing girl. So they're working on this together, and she's encouraging him to do his own kind of detective work and try to find out as much as he can about his daughter's whereabouts. And then he's trying to get as much information together as he can. And she's actually encouraging that, which I thought was a bit weird, but, you know, fine. if that's what she wants to, then that's cool. And then the dad really gets going, and we're there with him all the way. We see all his thoughts, everything he types, including the typos, which is fantastic. And that is also something they've introduced early on in the film when he's messaging with his daughter. He's sending something, and then she's sending something back, and then he's sending her something. He's like, oh no, I can't send that. And you see him deleting what he just typed without sending it. And then he's writing something else, and he's like, no, I can't say that either. So he's deleting that as well. And then he types something else, and then he finally fucking sends that. So that's a really great way to visualize like the inner voice, the inner thought process of the leading actor, of the leading man, which I thought was really interesting. Usually, sometimes you have them doing voiceovers so you can actually hear what they're thinking, that kind of a thing. But you have no need for that in this, because everything is via a computer, via a phone. Either they have FaceTime conversations or they type. You can always tell exactly what he's thinking of. And that's what makes it so interesting. You're there with him all the way. And you know exactly like his thought process. It comes up. It's like, what's he typing into the browser? What's he searching for? It's absolutely fantastic. I really, really love that. And it's the perfect way to visualize the inner dialogue. It's absolutely brilliant. The actors also get quite a lot of moments to shine. I mean, I think I mentioned that before. You don't just see computer screens because there's cameras everywhere. You obviously see what he looks like when he's finding something, he's watching a video of hers, or he's FaceTiming with a friend or with the detective or whatever it is. Through the camera in his laptop, you can see what he's feeling. You're right up there in his face, you're right up his nostrils basically, and you're privy to every thought and emotion. It's really, really great. I thought that was a very effective way of getting that done. It's sort of like mostly it's used in horror movies, like, oh, you have a group Skype call and then someone drops off, or I don't know, unfriended, and all of these things. But this film actually, I think, uses it in a really proper way and in a great narrative way, and makes it work fantastically. I was so surprised by that. And because it uses tech and social media a lot, there's obviously also commentary on social media. The sensationalism, the trends, people jumping on bandwagons. Because sooner or later, someone goes, I'm sorry, but we have to presume her dead. Then there's the hashtag, I can't remember, Rip Margot or something like that. There's a hashtag trending. And then people who clearly didn't really know her, she was just a means to an end for them. She wasn't really friends with them. They say as much earlier. It's like, oh, I was just trying to get into Berkeley, which is why I was in the same study group as her. I'm not really her friend. And then they're like, oh my God, Margot was my best friend and I don't know how to deal with this. Oh my God, I feel so bad. And just sensationalism, attention whoring, that kind of a thing. So it doesn't shy away from that as well. It definitely goes into like more like the darker side of things. It's like how people are just abusing these kinds of things. And that was really, really good. The third act is fantastic. There's a surprise coming up that I didn't see coming. It's all about the small details. It's a lot of fun. Because I usually see things coming 50 million miles earlier. But this one was really, really good. There was everything seemed to like bundle together really well, but there was something that just irked me, and after the film I would have gone like, they didn't really think about this little detail. But then the film steps in and goes like, don't worry, Mel, we haven't actually forgotten about this detail. And then there's a surprising twist at the end, which I really didn't see coming and which was amazing. The script's really clever. Every little detail matters. Every little detail also pays off. It's an absolute joy to watch, which sounds a bit weird considering the topic. It's obviously about a missing 16-year-old girl. There's also, I think, 2 mega tearjerkers in there. I really needed all the control and discipline that I had about me, not just to sob uncontrollably. There were, I think, 2 scenes where I just wanted to just turn into an absolute sobbing mess because it was so emotional. So do bring tissues, do prepare yourself for that. Like, the film isn't just really heavy and tragic. There's also like some funny moments and laugh out loud moments, not necessarily for the characters, but for the audience. But there's definitely some stuff that happens there where if you don't cry there, you have no heart. There's something seriously wrong with you. The film really goes under your skin and lingers. And one of the things is like, oh wow, it's 9 already. Social media, the internet, world at large, knows the daughter better than the dad does. And I mean, thankfully, all our lives are now on the internet, thankfully, for everyone to spy on. But seeing him piece all of that together was really good. And it's just interesting. It's like our footprints are important. Our digital footprints are really important. Now, whether you want to leave them or not, that's obviously up to you. But in this, it actually like was used for something good. But this information could obviously also be misused for something bad, just like all the time, right? It was really powerful stuff, great performances. I love the script because it was really tight. There's no fat there. It's really well written. Great use of tech, great use of social media, even with the commentary and all of that. Everything furthers the narrative. It's really, you're in there, like, you're tense and tense, and then there's like a little funny moment, and then you're tense and tense. It's absolutely, absolutely fantastic. I was really impressed with this film, to put it mildly. I love this movie. Searching is fantastic. It is well done. Technically, narratively, performance-wise, it's highly recommended. And I know I should probably end it there, but I still want to talk about Mamma Mia. Now, just a quick one, in case you didn't know what Mamma Mia is about. Obviously, about 10 years ago, there was the very first one, Mamma Mia, that starred Meryl Streep, which was quite a big success. It's basically a vehicle just to listen to ABBA songs. That's why I went to see it. It's like a feel-good movie with great music, and that's why you go and see it. So the plot on the second one is set after the events of the first film, and it features flashbacks to 1979, telling the story of Donna Sheridan, who was played by Meryl Streep in the first one, her arrival on the island of Kalakaua, which is a Greek island, and her first meetings with her daughter's, Sophie's, 3 potential dads. You know, in the first one, there was this whole thing about, I'm not entirely sure who your dad is. There is 3 people who could be, and it's like, whoa, what happened? Like, in the space of a month or something, you had 3 lovers, that kind of thing. And in this one, we have the flashbacks to 79, where Donna is played by Lily James, and we also have it in the here and now with Sophie, her daughter, who's played by Amanda Seyfried, and she learns about her mother's past, who died a year ago. So the character of Donna in the here and now has died a year ago, and and it turns out that Sophie is also pregnant now, just like her mom was. And it stars Lily James, Amanda Seyfried, Dominic Cooper, Andy Garcia, Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, and Stellan Skarsgård are back as the 3 dads. We have Cher come attend in this film. In case you haven't seen the trailer, she's heavily featured in there. It's like a surprise guest. It's like, boom, there's Cher. And Meryl's back, Julie Waters, and Christine Baranski. Now, this film, I wasn't a fan of the first one, I have to admit. I love the ABBA music, but overall, it left me wanting. It's not like I hate it and I don't love it. I'm very Swiss about the film. Like, it's fine, it's okay. This one, I went into thinking it's going to be a feel-good movie, because the first one was kind of like a feel-good movie. And let me just tell you that this is not a feel-good movie. If you think that you're just going to go in there and you listen to some ABBA songs and everyone's going to sing and dance and everything's going to be lovely and chill and awesome, not necessarily the case. And I was very surprised by that. So this movie took me on an emotional roller coaster ride. I snotted my way out of that. Seriously. I cried so much in this film. It was ridiculous. Because we have the different timelines, we have Lily James in 79 and we have Amanda Seyfried in the here and now, right? The Lily James bit is absolutely fantastic. It's very joyful, just like Lily James is, you know, like she has such positive energy and she's so exuberant, and she can basically power an entire city just by her positive vibes. You know, with that smile, everything's like the sun's always shining. She's amazing and energetic, and I loved seeing her. And then you have the Amanda Seyfried option, like side thing, that is taking place in the here and now. And it feels like the Bummer remix. That's what it feels like. Everything is like, oh, and sad and emotional, and it's like, because that's where Donna is dead, and it's like, oh, and everything is just like so over the top, and just, yeah, it's everything is a bummer. Everything made me feel horrible. Sometimes there were things that were a bit more entertaining and fun, and then especially when Christine Baranski shows up, because she's just always a hoot, right? But you had you had the Lily James version, which was so much fun. Seriously, even though even in that there were bits in it, it's like, why did you do that? But she is just a tour de force. You know, she's a force of nature. Even she's so much fun to watch, because she clearly had a lot of fun with what she was given and what she was doing, and the singing and the dancing, and it was great. But then this, every time you go back to the here and now and the Amanda Seyfried version, it was like, it was all right until closer to the end, because then there was a lot of emotional stuff happening that I was like, I need to really just start sobbing uncontrollably. I can't take it anymore. There's just so much pressure built up in me. It's like, oh, it wasn't feel good. It wasn't the feel good movie of the summer. And I was really disappointed because of that. It would have been better if we'd just seen all the stuff with Lily James, which was really, really weird. So Amanda Seyfried's version, they're going to reopen that hotel that Donna wanted to reopen, right? It was great. So I'm going to tell you all the things that I thought were great. There were a bunch of really great ABBA songs in there, especially Mamma Mia, Dancing Queen, and there was Super Trooper and Fernando, so it was great, yeah? But what they did around this time around, and I'm not an ABBA connoisseur, I don't really know their songs that well. They were playing a lot of, they also play Waterloo. They were playing a lot of songs that I didn't know. So there's not this reconnection of nostalgia and fun. Because usually when you're like, yeah, ABBA, and everyone's dancing and singing and in a really great mood and all of that stuff, that didn't happen this time around. It took about halfway through the film until they actually played a song that really got me going. And I was very surprised by that, because in the first one, no matter what I think of the movie, but at least the songs were really, really good. They were a lot of fun, and you couldn't help but go like this, you know? This time around, it was like, come on, play a song that I know, a song that's actually fun and not a bummer. So that was a bit of a letdown. And considering they go like, yeah, it's the feel-good movie of the summer, it's like, that's not really the case when you actually look at it. And that's very surprising, because the previous one, definitely you could have gone like, yeah, that's a feel-good movie of the summer. That's where people go because they want to listen to some ABBA music. This time around, very disappointing, unfortunately. It was cool to see Cher, and especially to hear her sing. I can't remember the last time I've heard Cher sing. I remember when I was a kid, she was an actress and a singer, right? Her song Turn Back Time is still one of my all-time favorite songs. I love that song. It gets me emotional and singing and dancing every single time I hear it. I love it. Hearing her sing was fantastic. And seeing her perform was even more fantastic. Having Meryl Streep come back was great, because it wasn't a surprise, because we've all seen it in the trailer that she's clearly part of this film, even though you could potentially think of this as a spoiler. Her scene was so emotional that like I said, I had to really control myself not to just sob uncontrollably in my chair, literally physically shake with sobbing. That's how emotional was that scene that she's in. I can kind of understand why they chose that scene, why they chose that song and stuff. But overall, I was like, dude, it's a Mamma Mia movie. It's supposed to be feel good. It's supposed to make people happy, not sad. And I felt more sad in this film, or equally as sad as happy in this film. And that is something that I didn't think was going to happen. And that's why overall, I thought the film was a bit of a bummer. The end credits are a lot more fun. because they're singing and playing the song Super Trooper over it, and that's obviously a wickedly awesome song. Everyone's coming together. It feels like a rap party. The entire cast is coming together. You have, because of the two different timelines, the three dads, you have, as I said, Stellan Skarsgård and Pierce Brosnan and Colin Firth are back, but also you have their younger versions in there who are taking place in the Lily James storyline, because she meets them, right? It's all about how she meets them and how she basically has sex with them, because they end up being all the dads sharing sort of custody of Sophie later on, which was kind of the thing in the first one, trying to figure out who actually is Sophie's dad. So it was kind of fun to see them all together, and that's what I really enjoyed. So the film does leave you on a positive note, which is good. But considering the bummer thing happened just a few minutes earlier and you're still wiping away tears and snot and all of that, is kind of like, what are you doing, dude? You didn't really realize what your audience is and what you're trying to bring across. So I was really, really surprised by that choice that they made. I think the Seyfried story in the here and now would have been better as bookends, and then retelling the story of Donna, played by Lily James, having to be the basic movie, and the Seyfried stuff just the bookends. I think that would have been way better. Loved Lily James in this. Absolutely loved Lily James in this. She makes me smile every time I saw her in this film, because she's just such a positive and smiley person. She is just Miss Positive. She's amazing. Really, really love it. She's really come into her own in the last few years. I really love her as an actress. Like, even in that Potato Peel Pie Society film, she's really good. In Darkest Hour, she's really come into her own. I love seeing her, and I love that she's getting all these leading lady roles now. Awesome. So I love the Mamma Mia stuff. That really got me bobbing. Mamma Mia as in the song. The Dancing Queen sequence, you will know what it is because obviously the song plays. God gave me chills and goosebumps and actually made me cry because it was so beautiful and positive, and I was just like, yeah, I just wanna sing and dance right here. And it's obviously not a sing-along that I was in, and I was like, and plus, no, even at a sing-along you probably wouldn't want to hear me sing. Trust me, it's not good. But that was a really, really great sequence. There was a lot of joy. It was just, you know, when you're so full of joy that you're crying because you're so full of joy. That's what it was like, and that was fantastic. Yeah, I love the end credits. I mentioned that. I mentioned the uncontrollable sobbing. The first film, I think, had a lot more hit songs. This one felt more like the B-side of the album, which was weird. I mean, maybe for someone who knows ABBA better, this one might be quite a different experience. I don't know their songs that well. I obviously only know the hits. And it feels like there weren't a lot of hits in this one. There were a lot of hits in the previous one, and it's like they ran out of hits or something, which was quite unfortunate. There's a very little outtake at the very end of the credits, so do stay till the very end. It's absolutely hilarious. There's quite a few memorable parts in there, but one of the most memorable ones, there is a customs official in the 79 storyline that Lily James meets when she's trying to get to the island, right? And he's hilarious. It's one of those actors, and I think he's a comedian or something, but it's one of those actors that makes the smallest parts work and memorable and just really milks it, but not in a bad way. Like, they gel and flow really, really well. But he has a shtick, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's hilarious. And he just consistently does that shtick with every single person that comes into his customs office. I thought he was hilarious. Loved it. Absolutely loved him. He was one of the highlights. Just like I'm saying, the entire 79 storyline was an absolute highlight because it was feel good. It was cute. It was gorgeous. It's like Lily James. She's gorgeous. She's cute. She's got an awesome smile. She's got great energy. That's what that is like. Unfortunately, the other half of the film doesn't have that. And that was very disappointing. And with that, I am done with Mamma Mia. And I will have to admit that out of the three films, well, I've seen 4 films. I've rewatched Hotel Artemis, which holds up really well on second viewing. But the movie of the week clearly is Searching for me. It's absolutely fantastic. You need to go and see it. I actually, I should have checked when the official release is here in the UK. I'm not entirely sure. I hope it comes out soon. This is a movie you need to put on your watch. Can't talk anymore. This is a movie you have to put on your must-watch list because it's fantastic. It's not necessarily as, like, it is gut-wrenching and it's a tearjerker, but it's also quite funny in places. It's just a really well-rounded film. It goes up and down in regards to tension. It gives you release from all the tension with some funny bits in between. And it's just one of those little gems that you never thought you're going to see. And it's really fantastic. You need to put it on your list. When it comes out, I highly recommend you go and watch this. Maybe bring a box of tissues. You don't necessarily need that, but it's really well done. It's an absolutely fantastic film. I think I'm actually going to put it in my top 10 list of the year for now. Really surprised by this one. Searching. Go check that out when it's near a cinema, when it's in a cinema near you. It's a very, very good movie. You need to check that one out. You can't miss that. That would be sacrilege. If you're a cinema goer, if you're a film lover, you need to go and see this. Trust me on that. Check out Mission Impossible if you're a bit into action. If you want to listen to ABBA music, do it at home. You don't really need to see Mamma Mia for that. But if you like seeing Lily James, you should go and check out the movie anyway. I hope you have a great time at the cinema on the weekends. I'll see you next Thursday. Have a good one.